An online conference is starting tomorrow with a focus on the hidden impact of cancer diagnosis. Returning to work, mental health, the sex, the fertility are all going to be topics that will be discussed by the Shine Cancer Support. One of the speakers is going to be Hannah Worsley from Manchester, who will be talking about how fertility can be affected both during and after the cancer diagnosis. And she joins me now to talk about this. Good afternoon to you. Good afternoon to Hannah. Hi there. I want to ask Hannah about why are these subjects not something that we normally talk about with a cancer diagnosis?
I think historically, treatment has been aimed at people that are maybe of a slightly older age, and Shine Cancer support those in their 20s, 30s and 40s. And I guess some of the topics of fertility, sex that you've just mentioned, perhaps menopause, aren't necessarily something that has historically affected people quite the same as they would somebody within their 20s, 30s or 40s. So that's why we feel it's really important that those topics are brought to the forefront and actually discussed openly, so that people can perhaps find the answers they're looking for.
Would you say that there's a particular emphasis on supporting people with those topics?
I think we've got a number of themes that we've identified to support people. So fertility and relationships is definitely one big area. People trying to juggle work and also a cancer diagnosis, and because the financial impact is quite significant as well. We also look at the long-term side effects of cancer. So even though you might get to the point of a remission or back to some form of normality within life, the impact of that cancer treatment can still be quite, can affect people for a long period of time, even post-treatment, and even for the rest of their lives. So I think it's about bringing people together so that they've got understanding, along with camaraderie, actually, which I think is really important to mention, but actually it removes some of the isolation that a cancer journey can create.
Something that I know Shine Cancer for, the support that you do, is the work that you do with young people. There's a lot of support and emphasis on that, isn't there?
We have a number of social activities that we do. We've got networks across the whole of the UK, but within the North West, we've got a Manchester and Cheshire network and also a Liverpool network. And we meet regularly each month, either online or in person. For example, we had a meet-up this week at a local pub where a number of us got together just to be able to talk freely, really, and sort of find some understanding in where people find themselves as a result of maybe loss of fertility or loss of hair, or how actually the treatment physically makes people feel. So people can talk openly and honestly. It possibly doesn't sound that exciting, but actually there is a lot of camaraderie and joking that comes around, and we have been known to enter the odd pub by maybe perhaps talking about some of the topics that we've been talking about because people feel uncomfortable, but there's normally a lot of laughter that goes with it as well.
I understand, Hannah, that you've had your own diagnosis a few years ago. Are you able to tell me about your experience, but also how Shine Cancer Support helped you in your journey?
Yeah, so in 2014, I was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma, which is a type of blood cancer. At the time, I was in my early 30s and was leading a fairly normal life, so busy with work, busy with socialising, busy with friends, and it came a bit out of the blue. It's normally fairly responsive to treatment, Hodgkin's lymphoma, but unfortunately I didn't respond too well to the initial chemotherapy that I had, so I then moved on to a secondary chemotherapy, which was then followed up with a stem cell transplant in 2015, which also might be known as a bone marrow transplant, and that has ultimately led to infertility for myself. Unfortunately, I then relapsed again in 2017, and it was at that point that I identified really that I needed to try and find some other people that were kind of going through the same thing as myself, and that's when I discovered Shine. And my first experience with Shine actually was driving all the way to Bournemouth to spend a whole weekend with 25 other young adults that were also experiencing the same thing. And whilst it was a massive leap of faith, it was one of the best things I ever did, because I spent the whole weekend with other people that just got it. And as a result, I've become the network leader for Manchester to try and remove some of the isolation and barriers that perhaps affect other people. But Shine actually really address some of the topics and help you understand perhaps why you're feeling the way you are. So they currently deliver a whole load of online programs, which actually I support with facilitation of, called Breakout or Circles, which take people on a journey to understand the impact that cancer's had for them, perhaps loss, or it might be friendships that have broken down, or the emotional side of it, or the mental health impact that it has for you. And we try and give people a coping strategy that can support them through that.
Hannah, this conference that you've got tomorrow, it's really important because, as we've mentioned, it's going to talk about the hidden impacts. How can people get involved and hear more about this?
So Shine Connect is the Young Adult Cancer Conference for people in their 20s, 30s and 40s. And it's also open to family members, partners, friends and healthcare professionals. If you visit our website, which is shinecancersupport.org, you can register for the event. It's running from Saturday the 12th of November through to Thursday the 17th of November, and there's a whole series of topics that you can book onto. The conference is completely free. If you're not able to join us live, then actually if you visit our website after the event, some of the topics that we've talked about will be available as a podcast, and so people can listen to those retrospectively if they can't make the session live. But we're discussing a whole host of things, from menopause to awkward conversations to sex and intimacy. We've got a session on lymphedema, we've got 2 on fertility, and we've got a keynote speaker called Wendy Garrett that's talking about how the human gut can have a massive impact on our health and our cancer susceptibility. So that should be a very interesting topic that she's discussing. But yeah, it's free to join, and they just need to register with us via shinecancersupport.org.
Hannah, thank you so much for joining me today on BBC Radio Manchester.